Hello everybody and welcome to the Last Word on Tennis podcast. We have an exciting pod ahead of us. We've got a multitude of amazing tennis minds that I've brought together for this debate podcast that was my own brainchild. So we've got four guests across the world. We've got Damien, who most of you will be familiar with, Damien Kust from Poland. We've got Rob Heath back for his second consecutive pod. All the way from the UK. We've got Ryan Schick from the States and also Amy Lundy from the States. Now, three of those people have been on the pod before. We've got one debutant though. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how's it going?
Thank you. We'll skirt over the fact that I completely got the wrong time for your time zone.
That's okay.
And if you want to introduce yourself briefly to the listeners and kind of what you've been doing in tennis for the last however long.
Yeah, I'm a longtime journalist, and I do some writing here in the States for ESPN.com, a website called 538.com. I write about tennis for them. But I love writing for Last Word on Tennis because there's good editors to really look at your stuff. And you have the freedom to write whatever you want. So I really enjoy it. But most of the stuff that I write revolves around data.
Yeah, that's a thing close to my heart as well. So really worth always checking out Amy's pieces on Last Word on Tennis. They're always worth the read and provoke some thoughts that you might not have considered before. So welcome to the podcast. I hope you enjoy your first experience here. We're going to introduce everybody now with a little question, which I always like to start with a random question. So obviously we know there's no live tennis at the moment. So the question to the guys is, and we'll start with Damien, what new thing have you done since tennis was stripped from your life? And Damien, as we all know, your life revolves around tennis. So come on, what have you done to fill the gaps?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna talk about tennis again because that's the only thing that comes to mind. I started playing with a tennis ball each day, which I actually have never done. I think I saw how out of shape I was getting, and I decided that I have to do something about it. So for the past 4 days, I've been getting up at 6 a.m. and going to a tennis ball in the neighborhood, and I'm enjoying this a lot, and probably going to do this, for as long as the lockdown is with us.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the thing about the lockdown. It's a horrible thing that's happening across the world, but it is giving people a chance to kind of reflect on what they do, and maybe things that people have picked up they'll carry on into the post-lockdown situation. Rob, have you picked anything up?
I'm expanding my cooking repertoire. I love cooking anyway, but I'm currently working my way through the Rose's Thai Cafe, which is a chain of Thai restaurants in London. I think there's one in Manchester as well. Their cookbook, which I bought for my partner a couple of Christmases ago, which is very much like the Homer Simpson bowling ball of presents, because it was for me, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, working my way through that book. There's some great recipes in there. I can recommend it.
No, there you go. A food recommendation as well. You get everything on the Last Word on Tennis podcast. Ryan, what have you been up to since tennis was cruelly taken away from us?
Yeah, I mean nothing crazy too new, but I've been working really hard, and I'm an engineer, so I don't work in tennis. But I've been trying to read a lot more recently, and so I started and finished 4 books in the month of March, and I don't think I've come close to that in any month in my life. So that's been my big thing, is just kind of doing a lot of reading.
Any books you can recommend to the people out there? We've got a cookbook recommendation already. So
yeah, actually, one I just finished a few weeks ago. I read John McEnroe's autobiography titled
I've read that. Amazing.
You Cannot Be Serious, and I'd highly recommend it. It's very McEnroe. He's very honest. He doesn't shy away from anything he did, and there's some really interesting insight on both his career and just kind of the tennis world at the time, and kind of the things you deal with that most of us wouldn't think about. So I definitely give that one a recommendation.
I wonder if we'll be talking about Super Brat later in the show. Amy, tell us something.
Well, I am a tennis player, and before this, I was playing 4 or 5 days a week, and you just can't do that anymore. So since all that has been taken away, I mentioned that I really like data, and I have been obsessed with the COVID-19 data. I mean, I get up in the morning and I read pretty much everything I can. And just the past week, I've been obsessed with the vaccine and the clinical trials that are going on around the world in the sort of arms race to find a vaccine. So that's kind of my new hobby.
Oh, right. Okay, so you're the expert then on the staff. Right. So when we end up doing a podcast about COVID-19, then I'm going to get you back on. Right. Let's talk about what we're kind of here all together for. We've come up with the idea of doing the ultimate Laver Cup teams. Right. So obviously the Laver Cup, a tournament that's been in the tennis calendar for the last 3 years. It was brought to us by Roger Federer's management team, Team 8, and a Brazilian former Davis Cup player who's involved, Jorge Paulo Lehmann, and Tennis Australia. So they've all come together, created the Laver Cup, obviously named after the great Rod Laver, and kind of liked the idea of what they saw in the Ryder Cup in golf. So we brought together the best of the Europeans and the best of the rest of the world, although obviously it's just the States in Ryder Cup. The matches are spread throughout the 3 days, with points being given out for victories in the matches. 9 singles matches and 3 doubles matches make up the points, and the points are increased throughout the day. So the matches on the third day are worth 3 points, I think, and in the middle day it's 2 points. So they kind of ratchet up the tension as it goes. It's meant to anyway. There was a little bit of tension in the last one in 2019. I think that went to the deciding match, did it? Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there. But Team Europe have won all 3 Laver Cups that they've been so far. The quiz question that I've got for you guys, which we'll come back to right at the end in terms of for the answers, is who are the top 9 Laver Cup point scorers? Now, top 9 might seem a random number, but there's a very good reason for top 9. Which we'll come to when we do the answers. So you guys, at the back of your minds, obviously whilst you're debating who's going to make your ultimate Laver Cup team, that's the question I'm going to be asking at the end. Who are the top 9 Laver Cup point scorers? And we'll see how we get on with that. You guys at home as well, feel free to think about that now, and obviously as you're listening to the debate, then have that ruminating in the back of your mind and see if you can get all 9. So let's move on to the actual debate itself. Obviously, I will preface this by saying that comparing tennis players across eras is A, very difficult, and B, probably quite foolhardy. It's the game has changed so much over, obviously, since the Open era, and even we're talking about the whole of tennis history in these teams. So even before that, it's almost an unrecognisable sport to what it is now. But we're going to try and tackle those things as we go and see who we end up with on the 6 strong teams. So Team Europe will get 6 players. Team rest of the world will get 6 players. Obviously, Damien and Rob, as the Europeans, will be mainly in charge of the European team, and then Amy and Ryan will be kind of picking for the rest of the world team. At any point, guys, if you have something to say on the debate that's happening, even if it's not in Europe and you're from the rest of the world, or vice versa, then please feel free to chip in with opinions. But I'll start with speaking to Damien first. What factors did you consider when you were making your selections for who you think should be in the European team?
Well, first of all, I actually decided to stick with the Open era. Pretty much because before that we don't really have much footage of the players. Guys like Laver, Borg, or Rosewell, we can find a lot of videos on the net, but not really that much about Tilden or anyone else. But yeah, and since we're going to be comparing all-time greats against other all-time greats, then I took a look at the head-to-head records between former world number ones. Also, all the previous editions of the Laver Cup were held in indoor venues, so I also kind of looked at how well the possible candidates did at such surfaces, so either on carpet or an indoor hard. And as it's a team-based competition, an important aspect for me was that, how did the player perform in such events? So the Davis Cup, World Team Cup, Laver Cup also, and anything else that can be put into that category.
Okay, so quite a few things then kind of fed into that. I did forget to say that, yes, the Laver Cup has always been played in a kind of an indoor hard surface, and they alternate it between Europe and the rest of the world, which made it difficult for me to try and find a neutral venue for this. So I'm suggesting kind of the moon, an indoor gravity controlled moon arena of some kind. But basically, the surface will be indoor hard, and it doesn't really matter necessarily where it is. Home advantage certainly hasn't seemed to help the rest of the world out so far in this short-lived competition. Amy, did you consider the kind of exhibition nature of the Laver Cup? Did you lean more towards your entertaining sort of players, or did you not really consider that too much?
All the things that I thought I was going to consider going into this didn't really end up mattering, because the players that I chose are really kind of all court players. They're mainly from the Open era, and they would give their all, whether it was an exhibition or whether it was for money.
Okay. So, yeah, the creme de la creme. Rob, anything to add on your, did you maybe look at the doubles side of things as well as the singles?
Yeah, I think you definitely need a. Well, I've gone for one doubles specialist who's a pretty useful singles player as well. And then singles specialists who are good doubles players as well. Obviously that's such an important thing, especially if you're making up some makeshift doubles players. The team element is obviously a big thing. Davis Cup performers was quite important for me. And I know Damien mentioned, players that are good on indoor hard, but also not including players that aren't.
Yeah. So, Ryan, would you kind of go along with that the team aspect of it is quite important for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Rob kind of used two of the things I was going to say. I definitely took doubles into consideration because, a quarter of the matches played are doubles. I didn't include any doubles specialists, but I did I looked at guys who were very good doubles players as well. The indoor hard, I mean, you never know in the future, and this is obviously all hypothetical, whether it could be played on a clay court or even a grass court, but mostly focused on players who did well in hard because it makes sense in the nature of the tournament to have it in indoor hard court arenas. And then, the final thing, I definitely looked pretty heavily on Davis Cup results because team competitions is different mentally, playing for your country, or in this case, your continent or the world. But it is just a different competition mentally, and I think you bring something else to that competition. So I did look at those Davis Cup results as well.
Great. So a kind of a vast variety of ways of looking at it and so many different aspects into it. A lot of people maybe would have just looked at it and gone, right, well, I'll just go down the Grand Slam list and count how many Grand Slams people have won and throw them into a team. But I get the feeling it's not really going to work out like that. So let's get into the team selections then and start with Europe. Rob, is there any argument that you found to not include who we consider now to be the big three, Federer, Nadal and Djokovic? Did you think of a reason why you couldn't have all three?
There is, and I kind of hinted at it in my last answer, and this may be where Damien and I clash straight away. But in my team, I've decided to leave out Rafa, which might provide some gasps.
Damien's storing that for an argument in a minute, I can tell. Go on, carry on. Justify yourself.
Purely for his, obviously his Laver Cup record is good, and obviously, we don't need to sit and discuss his tennis record full stop. I'm just purely going on indoor hard, and I wanted a bit more of a varied team in terms of eras as well, and for me, he was the easiest of the three to leave out. I think if you were doing this in all seriousness, there'd probably be a little argument to leave him out. But I don't know. Sometimes I would question his desire to even want to play on an indoor hard court, which again might get a few draws of sharp intakes of breath.
Well, let's just bring Damien in then. Like I've kind of prefaced that question thinking there wasn't going to be maybe a very good enough reason. Have you heard enough there from Rob to think that maybe he's got a point there about Nadal, or have you gone maybe a different way?
I was planning to say that I thought you would definitely